I'm going to talk about opening the heart, opening the heart chakra, and I'm really excited because, in many ways, this is one of the most powerful things somebody can do in their lives. So I want to just begin by talking about the heart chakra. Out of the seven, it's right in the middle, meaning it's sort of the bridge between our grounded selves, like the lower three chakras, and our higher selves, the upper three. So in order to be a fully integrated human being, we really are both. You know, we're a physical body, we're on the earth, and we're also a spiritual body. They're both simultaneously true. So how about that as a paradox? And so the heart becomes the center of all of it. It's where the two meet. And it's also a source of many problems because as we go through life, we close our hearts. We gather resentments. Actually, if you really are paying attention to your body, anytime you experience a fear or an anxiety or reaction to something, you can feel a subtle closing or constriction of the heart. And this is important to understand because I'm going to share with you exactly how to reopen it as things occur. So the other thing I wanted to share about the heart is it's the center of love. And love really actually is the most powerful, potent force in the entire universe. It's healing, it's transformative. It really is the same thing as God. And when I say love, I don't mean the kind of romantic love that we read in novels or watch in movies. I'm talking about completely unconditional love, like the unconditional love of a mother, or the unconditional love that we can experience from divine, like, you know, whatever it is that we believe in about the divine, that kind of love. And one of the most powerful things a human being can do is to begin to love themselves unconditionally. So rather than needing to rely on anything externally, whether it's a mother or a friend or a romantic partner or even God, we can actually develop our heart in such a way that there's like this closed loop of unconditional love for ourselves. And it looks like just loving and accepting every single aspect of ourselves. And which brings me to the next point. In order for this to happen, we have to forgive everyone and everything and all of reality and everything that's ever happened to us, because when we hold resentments or we don't forgive, it becomes a blockage in the heart. And my favorite definition of forgiveness is giving up the hope for a better past, because that's actually what it is. You know, we go through life and things happen to us and we cling to them. The heart clings to them. We store them in the heart. It becomes like an energetic blockage to experience love and life. And so we must let go. We have to learn how to be generous in forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, forgiving reality, because it's actually energetically impossible to both experience like unprecedented levels of peace and love and joy and freedom and hold resentments. Like, they're mutually exclusive. And in fact, the more resentments that we hold in our heart, the less room there is to experience that level of kind of joy and that sort of like freedom and that open-heartedness. So if you're ever wondering like, oh, why am I so unhappy? Take a look at forgiveness, because it could be the very thing that is in the way of you experiencing this kind of joy. And the more we forgive, the more joy, love, light, peace we're able to experience in life. And as part of the Freedom and Bliss course, I teach a meditation technique that shows you exactly how to forgive. So like maybe you're like, oh, I get it conceptually, but how do I actually do it? And so one of the tools that I'll share is exactly how you do it. Well, and it's very potent and very impactful. So now I want to talk about what's food for the heart. So now we remove the blockages. How do you actually make the heart larger? Like, how do you expand your capacity to love yourself and to love others? And the first thing is with truth. So the heart is actually a truth meter. It resonates. So if you hear truth, again, you'll notice a subtle opening, like your heart will open a little bit. It's happy. It feels good. It's like you love it. When you hear deep wisdom or somebody says something, it's true. You can feel it in your heart. It expands a little bit. And at the same time, when there's an untruth, or you can tell if somebody's lying, or you can tell if something's kind of phony or manipulative, because you'll feel a subtle contraction. And that's important because as we go through life, you want to learn to stop listening to your brain to tell you what's true or not, and begin to listen to your heart. So say you hear an idea or a concept, or you're thinking about doing something, just energetically hold it up to your heart and see if you feel a subtle expansion, like a yes, like this is true, or a subtle contraction, like a no, don't do this, stay away. And the more truth we experience, the more the heart expands. So if we live inside of truth, like we're true to ourselves, we're true to others, we're in a community of people that speak truth, the heart is able to really expand because it's like nourishment. It's literally, truth is like food for the heart. And the next part of food for the heart is vulnerability. So the third chakra, our ego, tends to have a lot of problems with being vulnerable, right? It's terrifying. It's like, what if I expose my true self? Will people love me if they know what a horrible person I am? And all these sort of things that we accumulate in life. So the ego is blocking us from being truly vulnerable and exposing ourselves. But if we can bypass that to the heart, our system, like the center of our consciousness, can elevate up to the heart, which loves vulnerability. Both us being vulnerable as well as others being vulnerable. Because what happens in that moment, and if you think about your life, like how moving it is when somebody's so vulnerable, and how profoundly connected you feel to others when you're vulnerable. It's like this kind of sacred experience of when someone's just truly authentic, truly vulnerable. There's something that happens, which is that there's an energetic connection between our heart and that person's heart. And again, this doesn't just expand the heart, this actually connects us to our true selves, because we're all connected. We actually are. All of us humans, we're connected to God, we're connected to ourselves. They're all the same thing. All we long for in our heart is connection. And if you start to look at your life, you'll find that's it. What we truly are longing for on the deepest level is connection. And it's only the ego that causes disconnection. It's the thing that causes us to contract, to be worried about what people will think, to be worried about approval, to be worried about whether people will love us or not. It's a contraction. And in that space of disconnection, rather than doing the work of reopening our hearts through vulnerability, we tend to do the opposite. We tend to be like, oh, I feel disconnected. Let me numb out. Let me eat some food. Let me, watch Netflix until 2 a.m. and kind of go on this disconnection spiral that makes everything worse. So when you can begin to identify that contraction in your heart, that you're experiencing disconnection, your pathway, the keys to the kingdom, is by being vulnerable. That's what I'm always doing. That's why I'm always just sharing myself publicly, vulnerably online, because it gets me back in my heart. I don't have to sit in this prison of shame and disconnection and fear. And yeah, I sit in there sometimes, till I've had enough, or I have to remember this stuff myself. But it helps, if I'm preaching it, it helps me be able to practice what I preach. So yeah, the pathway out of disconnection is vulnerability. It's actually sharing yourself with others, sharing yourself with yourself, sharing yourself publicly. It's very scary for the ego, which is why we tend not to do it, but it's so important because of what I said. We're all connected. That's actually our authentic state. It's not like, oh, when I'm vulnerable, then I feel connected to people. No, we're actually always connected. All the time. That's our authentic, natural state. It's only the ego that makes things into disconnection. So it's kind of like hacking yourself out of your ego into that state of connection that the heart is longing for all the time. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is that the last part of food for the heart is faith. So faith is very related to unconditional love. It's the belief that there's someone or something that's watching out for everyone and everything. You see it in all the religions. It's like, in Christianity, it's like all things work together. I don't even know, or I'm a bad Christian. All things work together for good for those who love the Lord, or something like that. Or in Buddhism, it can be said all is for the best. But it's this belief that despite all the things that our ego makes into problems, everything is actually okay, and it's all working together to the benefit of all. And it's also this belief that we're going to be taken care of, and that exists in the heart chakra as well. It's almost like this kind of light guiding the heart, and it's terrifying. The ego wants to have the opposite of faith. It wants to be afraid of everything. It wants to plan every imaginary bad thing that could happen. It wants to bring up all its resentments. That's its little thing. It's its jam. So again, a hack out of the ego is to step out in blind faith. And these things that I'm talking about are not easy to do. They're not easy to do. But I'm sharing them because one of the things I've created is that this Freedom and Bliss program, where you're doing this process with a small group of people and you're walking through it together, and it creates this sort of container where you can do this really deep inner healing work, and you can take risks. Like, you can practice being vulnerable with people. And I remember the first time I did this in my life, it was like the first time I ever shared myself authentically. Like, I'm terrified that people won't love me. If they find out the real me, like who I really am, it's impossible that they could love me. So I spent my life kind of constructing this image to desperately try to impress people, but I always felt disconnected. So the first time I shared this, and the first time I shared that I actually was struggling with drug abuse, it blew my mind open, because instead of what I was so sure it was going to be, that if people found out, oh my God, this guy has a drug problem, they wouldn't love me, it was the complete opposite. It was the first time I ever exposed my real self to receive love. And it was just such an outpouring of love, because it was like in this sacred container of a community. And it's so potent, like it's so powerful to do life with people who can inspire you with their vulnerability. And then you're like, wow, if that person can do it, I can do it. And what happens through this heart opening is a deep inner healing, because your heart wants to open, like it wants to go through this process of healing itself. It's why we're here. The soul is in our body to evolve, to heal, to come to this state of wholeness. And so, again, I want to share this. There's a group coaching program that's kicking off on August 8th. And so if this is something that is resonating with you, if your heart is like, this feels true for me, this feels groovy, I want to do this, then do it. Don't wait. Don't let your brain talk you out of it, because this is going to be a really magical program. It's led by Natalie LaCava, who's a very gifted facilitator and intuitive guide, and can create that kind of sacred, loving container that can allow you to go through this process of deep inner healing work. It's a 12-week program, and it's, once a week is the module. Like, this is one of the modules. And then there's also meditation instruction and discussion twice a week, which is important, because a lot of the benefit of the course actually happens in the meditations. So we have heart opening meditations. There's meditations for each of these modules to actually energetically open the physical body. So it's not a mind course. It's not a mind-based course where you're going to learn some information. It's actually mostly embodying. So it's mostly getting into your body and opening each energetic channel systematically. So we kind of work our way up the chakras. And so anyway, I'm just kind of ranting at this point. But if you're getting a yes, just do it. Send me a message. Send Natalie a message. Or you can book time on my calendar, or book time on Natalie's calendar, or click the link that I put in this feed, where you can learn about the course. And yeah, like I said, if you're getting a prompt, just do it. it really is a potent course, and I would love to have you. So that's it for today. I bid you adieu.